Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS, businesses, charities, others with employer identification numbers must update responsible party information within 60 days of any change. There's a YouTube video on this, says 5 things to know about the employer identification number. There's a link to that here. IR 2021-161, July 30th, 2021, Washington. Calling it a key security issue, the Internal Revenue Service today urged those entities with employer identification numbers, EINs, to update their applications if there has been a change in the responsible party or contact information. So the EIN number can, in essence, be thought of as like the social security number for a business. It's the number that the IRS identifies the business as. Although it says employer identification number, which might lead you to believe that it has solely to do with the employer kind of portion of the business, or even for businesses that have employees. That's not the case. It's more broad than that. Generally, you're going to use that EIN number to identify the company or whatever entity type it is for whatever needs you might have. And even a sole proprietorship might have an EIN number, because they might, even if they don't have any employees, they still might have an EIN number so that they can use that to give to other people when necessary, such as for, say, 1099s. Now, if you have an entity that you're working for and you're not an individual, you have an entity you're working for, then oftentimes the people that work for it might be then agents of the entity. Employees are kind of like working as agents, working on behalf of the company. And so you got to make sure that when you fill out the EIN numbers, you have the proper information there, who's going to be the responsible party and whatnot with relation to whatever type of entity that is there. And if there's going to be changes to that, then you got to make sure that you want to update the information with regards to the IRS so they know what those changes are. So that's what they're getting at here. So back to the text. IRS regulations require EIN holders to update responsible party information within 60 days of any change by filing Form 8822B, change of address or responsible party business. So they got a link to that here. So once again, if there's a change to the responsible party, because remember, if you're talking about an entity, then you're going to assign some person to be the responsible party of, in essence, that entity. And you got to make sure that if that changes, which it well could, given the fact that the entity could outlast, possibly, depending on the type of entity, any individual, then you want to make sure that you're updating the EIN status and whatnot. It is critical that the IRS has accurate information in cases of identity theft or other fraud issues related to EINs or business accounts. The data around the, quote, responsible parties, end quote, for business type entities is often outdated or incorrect, meaning the IRS does not have accurate records of who to contact for identity theft issues. This means a time-consuming process to identify the point of contact so the IRS can inquire about a suspicious filing. So it's quite possible that when filing for an EIN number, there was a different person that was assigned as the responsible party. There's turnover in whatever type of entity was applying for the number. Now you got different people that would be the responsible party, but they haven't updated the EIN number, so the IRS doesn't know who the responsible party is. And then if there's an identity theft issue, the IRS is going to have trouble contacting the responsible party. And it seems to be that might be a time-consuming thing, or it looks like they're saying it is a time-consuming thing. And they want it to stop right now. They want the information to stop the time consumption waste. So as a result, the IRS intends to step up its awareness efforts aimed at business, partnerships, trusts, estates, charities, and other entities that are EIN holders. Starting in August, the IRS will begin sending letters to approximately 100,000 EIN holders where it appears the responsible party is outdated. All EIN applications, mail, fax, electronic, must disclose the name, taxpayer identification number, social security number, individual taxpayer identification number, or EIN of the true principal officer, general partner, grantor, or owner or trustor. The IRS defines responsible party as the individual or entity who, quote, controls, manages, or directs the applicant entity and the disposition of its funds and assets, end quote. Unless the applicant is a government entity, the responsible party must be an individual, not an entity. If there's more than one responsible party, the entity may list whichever party the entity wants the IRS to recognize as the responsible party. EINs are to be used strictly for tax administration purposes. Entities with EINs that are no longer in use should close their IRS tax accounts and follow steps outlined at Counseling an EIN, closing your account. There's a link to that here, and there'll be a link to this in the description.